and hand it over to, I believe, Ben DeMarco to get things started. Ben, take it away.
Thanks, Cole. And yeah, just a brief comms check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. All right. So there's a few folks, Cole, if you can move them into the presenter role. I'm just going to go before we get started and start recording. Kyle Cobb, Sarah Topper, and I'll see if I see anyone else. Yeah, just so they have availability if need to come off mute. Kate DeLeal as well. And if any of the other Jamweek colleagues join, we'll go ahead and move them into the presenter role, so they can speak and have access to that. Okay, we'll wait one more minute before joining, and then for those that haven't been to one of these before, we're going to go through. We have some slides prepared for the INSITE program. We'll go over the background, the objectives. We'll share some on the technical approach, the funding profile. We'll open it up for Q&A, and then yeah, we'll get started here in about one more minute. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ben DeMarco. I'm the Technology Transition Director at America Makes. Thank you for joining and participating today. I'm going to go ahead and let my government colleagues from AFRL, if you can introduce yourselves first. Jay, and Del, and Eric.
Hey, everyone, this is Jay Waterman from AFRL's ManTech. I'm one of the SMEs for additive manufacturing and non-destructive evaluation, and have the honor of being one of the authors of the STU we're about to go over.
My name is Eric Lindgren. I'm the non-destructive evaluation technology lead in the creatively named Ceramics, Composites, Metals, and Materials Performance Division. Also sitting here inside the Materials Manufacturing Directorate, soon to become the Foundational Technologies Directorate as of June 1st. And I have been a co-author on the STU together with Jay.
Hi, this is Andel Kudzel, additive manufacturing from AFRL ManTech and government member of the America Makes.
Thank you. Next, Evan Handler, could you introduce yourself if you have access to the mic?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Evan Handler, based out of Naval Surface Warfare Center Carter Rock Division. I am the Government Chief Technology Advisor for America Makes.
Excellent. And then Kyle Cobb, I'm going to pass it to you as the resource sponsor from the Jamwig, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce you and your team.
Sure. Thanks, Ben. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kyle Cobb. I am the Deputy Chair for the Joint Additive Manufacturing Working Group that is led out of OSW Arnie's Manufacturing Technology Office. As Ben said, we are the funding sponsor for this effort. This was brought to us by the folks across our 300 plus SME community combined with some of the guidance that we're getting from national strategy and senior leadership within the Pentagon. I'm joined here today by the 3 JAMWEEK facilitators, Miss Elisa Peters, Miss Kate DeLille, and Miss Sarah Topper. Over.
Excellent. And then alongside me, John Martin, our R&D director, is on, and then Cole Miller, he's our senior program analyst, and then Zane Ross, who's our membership manager. So if you have questions that come up, Cole will put a link in the chat after this meeting. If you have additional questions, you can email the project call email. Cole is responsible for curating that. And then as well, I'll explain this in a later slide. We're going to have an additional industry day, as this project's unique. It represents one of the largest single award programs that have been competed at America Makes as the Institute when that comes to dollar value and scope of work. So this is a pretty big program. We've extended the Q&A period as well as offering a second industry day. So we're going to get started and talk a little bit of the background, and then my government colleagues, Jay, Andel, and Eric, Dr. Lindgren, we're going to be available as we go through some of this at the end for questions. So if you want to, as we're going through this, you can put questions in the chat, and then we'll work through them one by one after I go through the slides. So we're all here. We care about additive manufacturing. America Makes as an institute. It's a core focus of ours, but it's difficult to examine part quality for very large and complex parts. And there's different methods that have been looked at and proposed, but we're looking for ways to lower production costs and reduce lead times. This effort and the scope of this effort is looking to address a need of combining in-situ monitoring capabilities as well as advanced NDE, non-destructive evaluation processes, and combine those together for QA of critical parts. This in situ and post-build approach, there's a lot of shalls in the RFP. So I'm going to just say it shall be adaptable for multiple materials and manufacturing processes. And we tried to spell this out as clearly as possible in the RFP. So if you haven't had a chance to go look at it, Cole, if you can put in the chat the project call email, as well as the link to where these resources are stored, I think please download it and ask questions based on the RFP. At the end, the desired outcome is the ability to improve on some of the most difficult or costly assessments of AM parts. These large parts, very dense materials, not limited to, but refractory alloys or dense materials or very thick geometries that would be otherwise impossible to inspect with X-ray or CT. These complex shapes, internal geometries, flow passages, they require a lot of development and validation, and then additional methods, like I said, X-ray, ultrasound, not other traditional NDE methods. I'm trying not to read these verbatim. I'm trying to speak to them a bit more broadly. Think about a comprehensive system that can be proposed and demonstrate the value of both in-situ detection and measurement across post-build NDE, and then, yeah, some human oversight or some human interaction with those results to expand on and interpret the data for critical parts that are difficult to inspect. Jay, Andel, or Eric, is there anything on the background side? I know that you all put a lot of effort into this. We tried to pull some bullet points from the RFP, but any additional background that you want to say or share here before I go to the next slide?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. This is Jay. So I guess I just really want to get across that, we know we have a lot of in-situ monitoring technologies. We've done a lot of development there. We've got a lot of development for additive of regular non-destructive evaluation. What we're really looking for here is for you guys to team up and combine and give us an entire quality assurance framework that will, accelerate how we get quality assurance for some of these really hard parts to inspect, right? So we're not really interested in, just a single in-situ inspection technology. We really want to see the whole framework that includes both the in-situ and the post-build NDE in such a way that the quality assurance is faster, better, more capable than it would be just, without it. So that's why we're interested in the hard to inspect things. We're looking for you all to propose to us, how is your system going to actually fit into the system, make it better, and yet still be able to transition to those certification authorities, which is where we've not seen any motion or any significant transition of in-situ systems to date. We really want you to get all the way to the end, not just propose a shiny new technology over.
I think you just covered it, Jay. I think that's the data. Isn't it? This is Eric Lindgren. This is an integrated solution. It is not piecemeal. It's not standalones. It's how it's all integrated to deliver the quality assurance in the fastest way possible, but still be comprehensive to the complex hard to inspect component that's being built. Over.
Thank you both. Yeah, I think Jay said it well. If you just propose in situ, it's not going to be looked at favorably. It has to be an end-to-end unified approach or framework, like Jay mentioned. So thanks, Jay, for mentioning that. Before we continue on, Kyle, anything you'd like to add from the JAMWAG or on your side? If not, I'll continue on to some more of the slides.
Thanks, Ben. Nothing from me. I'll just say, you mentioned it earlier at the top of the conversation that this is one of the largest efforts that America Makes is funded, and that should really be a signal to the community, right? This technology is important, and these projects are imperative. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, single one award project calls, right? I think that's an important point. Like only one award is anticipated for this. We'll get more into that, but thanks, appreciate that. So objectives, I'll go ahead, Elisa. Yeah, from your side, please. You're on mute, Lisa. If you'd like to speak, go ahead. Lisa Peters, I see your hand up. I was going to wait to move to the next slide. I'll wait 10 more seconds. Otherwise, just put it in the chat and I can come back to it. Go ahead. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. Elisa, if you get your mic to work, let me know and I'll go back. But otherwise, I'm going to keep moving on to the objectives here. Again, the word transition was mentioned. This is meant to work through a development. There's going to be multiple phases. We'll talk about that on the next slide. But to develop, document along the way. There's some unique requirements and deliverables in the RFP. I do have it pulled up in the background. I will highlight some of those. And then transition, this AM NDE process framework that Jay mentioned. Detection of data, both in situ defect detection, post-build NDE. Again, there's not really an end-to-end solution out there that we've seen or we've witnessed that is being deployed and transitioned. We've given some shall statements as a baseline to be grounded on AWSD 20.1 with a target probability of detection greater than 90% where applicable. And then we've included some additional like mill handbook resources with further definitions for when you're creating your proposal. And then additionally, the proposers are meant to provide any gaps where D21 maybe doesn't cover everything, especially when it relates to in situ, to justify their alternative or any supplemental work that they'll be doing or where they will be expanding on what D20.1 offers for specific materials, geometry, repairs, as well as any methods that they're planning to propose or use. This has a focus on laser powder DED or wire DED, as well as I think maybe we had a typo here and it didn't get included. There should also be laser powder bed fusion. Cole, if you can fix that, I want to make sure it gets corrected as well. So it's not just DED. It also includes powder bed fusion, correct, Jay and Eric?
So then actually, I think we were hoping to look at specifically the directed energy depositions for this call. The reason for that was a couple of fold. One, we have a lot of work in the laser powder bed already. And number two, our demand signals from our program offices are highly looking at DED applications for their needs for transition for both new part construction and repair.
Okay.
Over.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on then. The three elements that the proposer must plan to. Oh, Eric, is there something on your side?
Nope, sorry.
Okay. The three areas that we want to make sure that.
Hey, Ben, this is Peter. I was just going to check. Sorry for interrupting. Peter Dahm with Rolls-Royce. You said D20.1. Did you mean D20.2? If it's going to be DED?
So I guess
I'll go ahead and say yes, when that document gets released, it would be the applicable. But since that's still pending final publication, D20.1 as it stands.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we did mention some, like, I'll say, example to sensors. Like someone did mention this in the chat, so I'll address it before I move on, and I'll go back to sharing my screen. So someone said, hey, LPBF is mentioned in task 1. So really there's some sensor framework, right? Like Jay mentioned that there is some maturity, and some people have linkages, or hey, we use this sensor in this methodology. And so that's the main point why LPBF was mentioned in task 1. But yeah, I think that hopefully will address the question in those deliverables. We'll make sure we get them fixed if there's additional questions. And Evan, thanks for covering on the D20.1 and D20.2. So yeah, we're building this, or this was built off of the standards that have been publicly released or that are out in the community, but we'll continue to talk on them, and we'll answer some of these in the Q&A. So the proposer must understand the limits of the monitoring technology. Of whatever they're bringing to the table, they must propose and understand those limits. They must understand the discontinuity type, size, and location that is driving unacceptable performance. We view this as like there is currently a major gap when trying to substantiate acceptance and validation of this methodology. Proposers are encouraged to use any prior data, whether it's from IRAD or past America Makes efforts to support this line item, or shared or explained in their submissions. And then lastly, and these will kind of tie to the toll gates or the tasking, is demonstrate that inspection capability can reliably detect defects. We mentioned this as well. Thank you again for continuing to submit your questions. Keep putting those in. We'll get to them at the end. There will be plenty of time to talk about them. We gave examples of these gates and the tasks, but we're really encouraging you to develop the task concurrently. So they don't necessarily, task 1 doesn't have to finish for you to have task 2 either started or in progress. There's a lot of work that has to be done in 36 months. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're submitting your proposals. They shall address all 3 task areas and present phases of tasking with associated decision dates. So these gates are important, right? We've put rough milestone timelines, about 6 months, about 15 months, about 20 months. But we want the proposers to include them in these decision gates at various points. And we'll speak to that a little bit more. For gate 1 is the initial integration of sensors into the machine and collection of in-situ data. Again, if you have a process that is more mature, you can put that in your proposal, right? We're already demonstrating this in production. Okay, we'll explain that to you, or us, or the reviewers in your proposal. But ultimately, this gate 1 has to occur. Gate 2, about 15 months, demonstration of whatever in-situ data that you're collecting or identifying areas of interest for post-build NDE. And then gate 3, about the 20-month mark is correlation of any in-situ data with post-build NDE results. Jay, I was going to ask you, rather than me read the slides, I know that we work together on the tasking, and there's kind of 3 core tasks for the effort. And then maybe if you wanted to give a verbal take, and then we can go from that side. Does that sound good, Jay?
Yeah, sounds good. So the way we envision this working is it's not going to be sort of a subsequent, first you do the in situ and then you do the post-build NDE. So we've got kind of these 2 tasks we expect to go concurrently to get you the end goal for task 3. So the parts are, task 1, we want an in situ process monitoring that will give you some information of quality assurance and defect detection. And we do not anticipate that only in situ can ever get you to the final quality assurance for everything. Quick example, if you have a part and your in situ says it's great, and then the machinist drops it on the floor after it's cut off the build plate and it cracks, right? You're not going to see that in your in situ necessarily. So what we're expecting is there will be some post-build NDE that has to be done as well for most of our critical parts, at least as the certification authorities, that's what we're going to expect to see. So how we'd like you to approach that is figure out what your in situ can find and how reliably it can find it, and then use that to inform your post-build inspection what you need to do in a way that you actually benefit through either cost or schedule or just ability to inspect a very dense or large part. And then the task 3, which sums it up, is we want you to develop this framework that we can implement this. And this is supposed to be something that at the end of this project, one of the reasons we put so much funding on here is we want something that we can actually implement in industry through an industry partner, where you will produce some of the parts that we actually need for the Air Force. And we have the framework, the assurance, and the data behind it. So we can go to the airworthiness authorities and who have to date been very hesitant to approve new quality assurance systems. We want to bring all the data we can so that we can say, look, this is where we are. This is why we are confident that this entire quality assurance framework can deliver the critical part, and you can sign off on it. That's really the end goal. So what we're looking for is you to do those 3 tasks in parallel and give us the output of that final framework. Does that cover everything, Eric?
It does. It does. Thank you, Jay. Yeah, I can't say anything more. You said it perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah, and Jay, I really appreciate you giving that context. I'm going to pull up one example. I mentioned this at the beginning, and I'm sharing this from a perspective of someone who has submitted to America Makes proposals in the past. And in this seat, I want to tell you there are very specific deliverables in the RFP. So if you were to go to page 12, a deliverable for task 2, you must provide a plan to qualify post-build inspections and be working at a minimum a letter of support from a weapons platform partner, and how that partner plans to oversee the transition efforts in task 3. And then additionally, there is a group that's going to be supporting this, the Air Force NDI Executive Working Group, and it's going to be further outlined in the RFP. You must be submitted, reviewed, and acknowledged by this group. So this deliverable puts some teeth to task 3, right? Like we're saying, and Jay has said this, there have been clear roadblocks where we get to a certain point and these things fail to transition. And we're trying to set this program up in such a way that you have a partner in your team that can help you deliver this. Dr. Lindgren, could you kind of briefly just verbally introduce or mention what the Air Force NDI Executive Working Group is?
Yes, of course. Thank you. The Executive Working Group is the one collaborative team within the Air Force. It's centrally organized. It consists of members from both the Air Force Research Labs and both the research side and on the engineering side. From our Lifecycle Management Center, the program office is responsible for all field inspection processes. And from our Air Force Sustainment Center, the responsible level 3 for all 3 depots. So this is the team that basically vets all technology in NDE or NDI or NDT, whatever you prefer, and for its implementation in the Air Force. We are coordinated with the functionals for each MATCHCOM. So the MATCHCOMs, when they have issues, they will come to us as far as what capabilities are available or need to be developed to solve NDI, NDE problems for the Air Force. In addition to the EWG, we do plan to include colleagues from NAVAIR and NAVC on this team. So they represent the spectrum of the DOW where we are trying to implement these types of critical components on military systems.
Excellent. Thank you
If I
so
can
much.
just add real quickly. So we are planning, we have dedicated support planned from the government team to support the winning proposal on this effort. You will not need to find government people for your support. We already have those identified. Of course, if you have someone you'd like to include, that's not a problem, but you don't have to find the government stakeholders. We've got them here and we're ready to help you guys be successful. Over.
Excellent. Yeah, and you can find that information on that NDI Executive Working Group on pages 12 and 13 in the RFP. There's a bit of a paragraph that talks about what Dr. Eric Lindgren just mentioned. And as he mentioned, there's going to be joint support from the different forces. So the Navy, Air Force, as well as the Army. So we get that with this program. All right, let's start talking about the important things here, which are the funding profile. So there will be one award, $13.2 million max of federal funding. It's a maximum of 36 months, 33 months of execution, 3 months of reporting. We are okay if you propose a shorter period. But again, with the level of funding and cost share requirements, so 25% cost share requirement, this program can extend out to 36 months total. I mentioned that we're going to have an additional industry day here. So some feedback from members recently. We make the project call announcement and folks have mentioned that they need more time to review the proposal, to put together a team and ask questions. So questions are due on May 21st. So you still have 2 weeks left to submit questions. After you submit those questions, we'll work with some of the government stakeholders that are on the call now, as well as other SMEs on the government side to get those questions answered. And those Q&As get posted to the website and will be on there by the end of May at 5/29. This additional industry day is, let's say after this meeting and you go talk to folks, you have more questions. The point is we're going to bring this group back together in a shortened forum for you to come together with additional Q&A. Now we want to try to give as much time as possible to those that are planning to submit to this effort. There's additional line items and deadlines. Maybe Zane, if you want to mention the membership deadline, because I know some folks, when they look at these, they wait till the last day. And I know that we run into trouble where people are not a member paid in full by the last day that it is the deadline.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here real quick. And just a very easy clarification for a lot of the folks on the line. If you're already an America Makes member and you have been for at least over a year, this is not something that pertains to you. So you do not need to be worried. The main situation where this is a topic of discussion is for somebody who, sees this project call, decides they want to join the Institute to participate, and then they join via our APP program, Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, that defers your payment of membership dues. If you want to be the lead proposer on a project call, you cannot be in that deferral period where you have not covered your membership dues either upfront, through cost share, or through a previous year until you cover your dues via one of those routes. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a little bit confusing, but we do intend to keep it that way as the app program provides a very straightforward and accessible route to membership, while we still want to keep that value in those that are consistently engaging with the Institute year over year. So If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks, Zane. If you can put the membership email in the chat, I'll allow folks, if you have questions on that, you can reach out to the membership team. But again, if you're not sure, start reaching out now and get those questions answered. I know with some of these past project calls the last month or so, there have been folks running up to the deadline on this one. So I just wanted to make special note of that. Submissions are due July 9th, no later than 5 p.m. And yeah, within, I'll say, a month and a half after, we anticipate to have a decision for the selected project team. Again, this is going to probably, some people will be frustrated by this requirement, but because of the maturity and the anticipated weapon systems platforms, a DD2345 will be required for all eligible team members. And those are required at submission. So I want to make this as in bold, that is because of the maturity of this program and the transition likelihood, right? The relevancy of what will be studied and what will be applied. So this is a hard requirement for this program. There are some of these additional bullet points I'll touch on at the top is, the lead proposer is responsible for the project and the subcontractors on their program. And then the U.S. proposer or the lead proposer should have a SAM.gov and cage code UEI number on the front page of their proposal. And additionally, there's a membership agreement. So when you go to submit your proposal, you are required to check a box about the membership agreement. So please, if you have questions about that, start asking now to give yourself enough time. Your proposal team arrangements. So this is anyone who's on the team. Any of the relationships of those on the proposal must be fully disclosed. And then this performance in this is restricted to U.S. persons only. And then there are there is language in the RFP specifically about programs that are prohibited on the project teams for automatic disqualification. All right. Zane, do you want to speak on the membership slide, or Cole?
I'm happy to speak on it. So this is kind of what I had spoken through earlier. If you are currently not a member and you're interested in joining, you can visit americamakes.com/membership. You can, there's some Q&A on there. There's some information about joining. And then there's also a button to apply now. That's going to be to create your profile. And that will prompt us to reach out with our membership agreement to talk about, how you want to go about covering your dues. So approach it that way. If you are not currently a member, go to the website, apply now, create your profile, and we will reach out to you. As far as the cost share goes, you can use the cost share from this project that you contribute towards your membership dues, but it does not count towards that initial payment that I referenced earlier, if that makes sense. Ben, if I need to clarify, please let me know. But yeah, that should cover all of it.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, and just this is a simple bullet point when we say 25% cost share. If you request $1, you're required to submit 25 cents in cost share. So for $1 in government funding, the total scope would be at 1.25, so $1.25. Some questions get asked afterward on that, but yeah, that's a requirement for this program is the cost share. There is a minimum list of deliverables, specifically on page 17 of the RFP, and then the list of reporting requirements on page 32. And then lastly, there is a specific exhibit that it's not required on all programs, but on this one specifically, there is an exhibit that is a requirement for DD2345. As I'll say, Dr. Lindgren and Jay have mentioned, huge emphasis on the technical approach and methodology. It's 50% of the score. And when you're being evaluated, I'll go to the section in a minute. There is specific evaluation criteria that your proposal will be judged on. And I want to make sure that's clear that 50% of the score is the tech approach and methodology, technology dissemination to members and impact to the DoD, as well as transition of the technology is 25% of the score, program management approach is 20% of the score, and cost is 5% of the score. Further details of this are in section 4. And again, I'm going to pull this up because I've done this in some past overviews of these programs. And again, I want to make sure it's clear where you should be looking when you're going, like, where is the evaluation criteria. It's down in section 4. People miss this. So it's important for you to go down and read section 4. So when we talk about tech approach, 50% of your score, there's bullet points here. Your proposal should look at these bullet points for each section and make sure your proposal addresses them. Again, this is in section 4 of the RFP. So this is the tech approach bullet points. These are the supply chain and tech dissemination bullet points. And then the program management bullet points and the cost bullet points. A lot of people do miss this. Go ahead, Cole.
I'd just like to iterate that underneath all of these criteria, the bullet points, I copy and paste those verbatim when I make the scorecard for our reviewers. So just let everybody know and put it on the recording. We do provide all of the evaluation criteria, and it is the bullet points that you are looking at here.
Thanks, Cole. Yeah, I would just say that it's in section 4. We call it out. These are how the proposals are evaluated. So please consider this and note that the tech approach is 50% of the score. Cole, do you want to cover this page for the proposal and contract information?
Yep, we can keep this one pretty brief. So we just asked that your executive summaries contain, publicly releasable, non-proprietary information. That's just in case we need to write our press release. We can use some of the information in that. Typically, though, we do just use your company's name, but we may be asked also to talk about, to whether it's the government team, to other members, after award or immediately after award, what you would be doing for the project. As far as contract type, it's specifically cost reimbursement, no fee, governed by 2 CFR 200. I think we mentioned this before, but cover page, please put your UEI and CAGE on there. And then a lot of questions on the subrecipient agreement. So we ask everybody to review and submit either the document or a red line copy to us simply to help us accelerate contracting. We do understand that some organizations, however, will not let you submit the subrecipient agreement without notice of award. In that case, it is all right to exclude it. But we do ask because it does speed up our contracting team that if you've already looked at it, you've agreed or redlined it, and if you're awarded, we basically just send that back to you and say, hey, please sign this, and we can work to award.
Thanks, Cole. All right, questions. I saw some good ones pop in. And again, we're going to do our best to answer these live, but there are some cases where we may have to say, and we'll work as a government team with the government team and the SMEs to deliberate and get answers to some of these. So we may not be able to answer all of them, but Cole, if you could, I'll pass the mic to you, and if we could kind of work through the questions that are in the chat now.
Yeah, we'll do. I think we already addressed the first question, which was the LPBF in the deliverables for task 1.
Yeah, so the main reason that was in there, Crosby, was just in general, right? If you're using a sensor or something from another technology, we want to make sure that you make it clear and how you're planning to integrate it to this process. So hopefully that answers that question.
Is there any particular method of DED being considered?
So this is Jay. I'll take that one. We are hoping, or we are expecting you to go to, have one of the prime contractors on your team with an application in mind. There are lots of methods of DED. We want one that we can actually transition. So our expectation is that you bring us one that you can say, this would be a positive ROI for us. Over.
And that would lead into the next question. Could you clarify the
Before we
focus
move
on
on,
wire? Oh,
before we move on, Cole, just want to make sure that's clear. This is called out on page 8 of the RFP. So for those that are listening or listening to this later, this is called out on the RFP page 8. Go ahead, Cole.
oh, yeah, the next question was just, is this wire arc DED and or laser wire DED?
So yeah, to add on to that, we have applications where both could be beneficial. We want a framework that can be applied to both ultimately, so that we can have the biggest impact for the DOW. So again, looking for you to show us, how you're going to implement it for these technologies.
Right. Next one is, if you are seeing signals for the DED need, are these associated with certain weapons platforms? And if so, can you share them?
Jay, before you answer, I just want to interrupt.
Okay.
This is a distro A format, and it is being recorded. So just make sure you are aware. I know you are, but just want to make sure you're aware before you give the information.
Thank you for that, Matt. Yes, my answer
very much appreciated.
is no, we cannot share DoD shortfalls in a public forum. But this is something. There are many prime contractors and producers of parts for the DoW in the America Makes members. It's our expectation that you team up with at least one of them and you bring us something that will have positive value, and they will know what those are. We will not really consider any proposals that are completely independent of a producer with no application. We have funded many, this in situ shall work for everything and it's going to be great, and then seen it never transition to anything because there's no buy-in from the prime contractor. So the demands exist. You will have to go find them. And that also will lead into, why we restricted this to U.S. persons overall.
Thanks, Jay.
Are there any alloy systems of interest or alloy systems that are not of interest?
So we are interested in lots of alloy systems. What we are not interested in is anything that is very easy to conventionally inspect, right? So very tiny aluminum parts that you can just throw in a CT system. It doesn't really add value to us for in situ. So while we're not limiting to alloys, again, we want you to bring our needs, but we do want to see in your in situ system how it will be applicable to some of the really hard problems we're looking at. So those are the alloys, very dense type alloys, refractory alloys, some of the nickel-based stuff that if we have to rely on in situ, we want the in situ solution we're funding to work for them. Over.
And when you say
I'll
small,
add to-
Jay, on the part, you're talking about part scale size, small aluminum, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Go ahead, Evan.
I was just going to add, this program is not intended to try and mature a newer AM alloy. Anyone interested in that is encouraged to go look at the Miami program call we put out concurrent to this one, which is intended for that sort of work. So preferably mature and understood alloys. But there is no requirement of what does mature mean. Just as long as it's it has a transitional use.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Evan. Again, we're looking for something we can actually implement. So something at the maturity stage that if this project is successful, we can go do and build.
Yeah, and I would, one more point I want to add to this before we move to the next one. So Miss Elisa Peters put a comment earlier on. that the JAMWAG want to support the community and the production throughput with this program and greater acceptance by DOW authorities. So it's not just Air Force, right? It's Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, the services, right? So keep that in mind as well. Although Jay and Dell and Eric do sit at AFRL and they have been helping in writing this, it is meant to be to improve acceptance by the DOW authorities.
Yes, Ben, thank you for that. And that's one of the reasons why I mentioned that on the executive working group, we're not just going to be Air Force exclusive. We're going to invite our partners from NAVAIR, NAVSEA, and the Army to join us on that board. We do close coordination, especially with NAVAIR, but now we're going to expand it. We do know who the warrant holder for NAVSEA, and we'll be able to work with the NAVSEA community as well. Over.
Thank you.
Right. How do they submit the support commitment letter for review to the USAF NDI Executive Working Group?
So we're not expecting you to submit a letter of support for that. We are expecting your proposal to plan for fairly significant involvement, support, and review of the government team.
They should not be evaluating pre-proposals or pre-concepts. They are evaluating once we are under contract. And really that is because their focus is on the transition element and its implementation potential across the services.
Yeah, and Cole, I wanted to go back because I mentioned this in the where I pulled up the task deliverables for this specific one. So for this actual letter, again, it's not expected to be due. This is like an implementation plan or an implementation path. So you finish task 1, you finish task 2, you would submit this to your PM, your program manager for the project at that time, and then this community would review it. Again, but as Jay mentioned, the expectation is your proposal should already include whoever those people are going to be. But we realize sometimes for some of these larger vendors, it's very hard to get this level of commitment early on, right? They may be able to provide a letter of support or a letter of interest, but if you're awarded this and you're working on this, one of the key deliverables in task 2 is, hey, this person's going to work with us no matter what in task 3, and it's focused on this weapon systems platform. So I do want to foot stomp that because this was language we added from the transition aspect to solve some of the problems Jay talked about when you run into walls in transition. So Jay, anything else you want to add on that? I just want to make sure we answered this question fully.
I think you covered it.
Yep.
Okay. All right, continue on, Cole.
Right. Are weapon platforms that are not Air Force specific evaluated of lower interest, as in some sort of Air Force based platform versus some sort of Navy weapons platform?
So I'll say we're not limiting this to be Air Force specific. We are very happy to see transition opportunities with the Navy, with the Army if appropriate. What we're really looking for here, though, is something that we can do beyond more than just one instance, but we definitely want one instance that shows positive return on investment. So our expectation is we get to at least one win with this program that will then lead us to be able to expand out to other parts. So that being said, find a good need and a good partner to work with. It's something we can transition, and we will be happy no matter which service that supports. Over.
Excellent. Evan, Kyle, anything else to add on that question?
I'll just add the emphasis here, what we are really interested in at the end of the day is the framework. We want something that is transitionable, is implementable for other parts, and ideally that framework should not change in a major way if it's for an Army ground application versus a NAVSEA application versus an Air Force application. The framework itself ideally will be about the same. Sensors, acceptance criteria, sure. But again, it's the framework.
Thank you. All right, Cole, next question.
Okay, so can equipment only be purchased outside the US? And I think that's trying to ask, like, of the things that we said US persons only, if they can do something outside the US, is that equipment purchase only?
We'll provide some formal language on this there's some contractual requirements, I think, on this, Cole. So I think we should provide some formal language in the Q&A response.
Copy
The
that.
simple answer is yes. If equipment does need to be purchased outside of the US or materials, it should be noted in your proposal. But I believe we have some formal language on this that I'd like it to be added into the Q&A on the website.
All right, next one up. So, bit of a longer question here. We would like to incorporate a novel post-build NDE technique into the program. However, our critical supplier does not have the bandwidth to support the implementation during year one due to existing contractual commitments. Would it be acceptable to defer the introduction of this post-build inspection technique to year two, assuming the tech is sufficiently novel and provides significant value to the program?
So I guess we're not going to immediately throw your proposal in the waste bin. If you have your, tell us when you think you can implement and on what scale, and we will do our best to assess the risk and the technical merit of your proposal. I would suggest, though, that one of the things we are concerned about is making sure we have buy-in from all the appropriate groups. So if there's someone who critically needs to be accepting and performing on your proposal to get the task done, we're going to need to make sure they have commitment to do that. The second thing I would like to address is the novel technology. We're not really interested, or we're not trying to develop novel technology necessarily here. We've developed lots of technologies. What we want for this is to get a framework that we can implement. So you don't necessarily need to show your technology is incredibly novel. We are trying to develop and mature, the technologies we have into something we can go and implement. So it need not be the newest, fanciest thing. We are more concerned about whether or not we can put that into a quality assurance process for production and how we can show that it has a positive value on either cost, schedule, or readiness.
So I think to emphasize, it's not necessarily to develop a new capability, but if there's a novel capability that needs to be scaled and there's a scaling issue, we will be willing to listen to the scaling parameters and the timeline to do it. But if it's developing something completely new from scratch, that would be more challenging under the timelines and resources being provided here. So when you say novel technologies and scale up, it really becomes a function of how quickly and how comprehensively you can show that it has that transition capability and implementation capability that we are looking for as a result of this solicitation.
Excellent. Thank you.
Right. Is the work considered CUI? And if work performed by US persons is acceptable to make the test coupons in a non-CUI environment?
So I'll say the reason we wanted US persons is we want to ensure that you can partner with some of the weapon system suppliers, and you can use real parts with real demand as your transition targets. We didn't want anyone to not be able to provide us a real transition because of ITAR restrictions. That said, I don't think all of the work necessarily needs to be performed in a CUI environment, but we want to make sure that we're not limiting ourselves to getting an impact because we don't have the right controls. Does that sound?
Yeah, and I saw Evan came off mute. Evan, I didn't know if you have anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, the project at the components are up to CUI, and to ensure that, we're asking for the DD 2345. Work that is unclassified, that is not CUI, can occur at not CUI environments and controls. But because the components are expected to be CUI, the proposal team should be entirely eligible for CUI.
Thanks, Evan. Thanks, Jay. Cole, I see the next one. It was a little bit confusingly typed, so I'm going to read it. But Jay and team, is there an expectation to target multiple materials, or is a single material preferred?
So we are providing a fairly large budget. I think it would help your proposal if your system can be, multi-material capable. I guess.
We provide several representative examples.
Yes, we provided some examples there for like the dense materials, the refractories. Just we're trying to get the most applicability out of this effort as we can.
What we're fearful of is seeing in the past that sometimes, especially with NDE technologies, they can be over-tailored for one specific material or one specific complex geometry. We would like to avoid that and make it as pervasive in its application to make transition as easy as possible for as many applications as possible as the end result of this framework being developed.
Excellent. Thank you.
So to clarify, are you looking for a DED solution, not LPBF solution specific for this project call? And if so, is that due to the size of the parts that we targeted post-award?
Yes, so due to the size and the demand signals and the amount of prior investment, this call is focused on the DED. Does not mean we're not interested in laser powder bed fusion anymore. I'm certainly happy to, consider other things under other awards for that, but for this call, we are targeting DED.
Well, I know we're running up on time, so I think we got 3 or 4 left. Jay, Eric, and Del, do you guys have a hard stop at 4? Apologies, I know we're at the time wall.
Yeah, we have a few minutes here, I think.
Yeah, if we have 3 or 4 more, let's cover those.
All right, we're gonna cap the Q&A now. So we're gonna try to get our way through these last 4. Go ahead, Cole.
Can the proposer request mechanical testing at FAST?
Yes.
Yes, FAST
Yes.
should be available. However, we're not looking for, a huge mechanical test program under this call.
Thanks, Jay. Next one, Cole.
Task 1 specifically mentions requiring in-situ eddy current measurements. Can you comment more on that requirement?
So we are looking to develop solutions that can find sort of the arbitrary types and sizes of defects in the complex shapes. Eddy current was one of the, technologies we haven't funded significant amount of development in before. And so we would like to see that as part of this proposal, as we think there's a lot of value there, and there has not to date been as much focus on maturation of the technology.
I would say, and with the limited investments we have seen, there's been some potential broad-based applicability, especially for these types of materials and build processes.
All right, Cole, let's try to ramp through these last 2, and then reminder, we will have another industry day coming up on Monday, May 18th. So Cole, let's try to work through the last 2 quickly here.
Yep. How mature does the implementation of the in-situ measurement solution have to be at the start of the program?
The start.
At the start, there's no requirement for maturation. What we will be considering is the technical risk to mature it to implementation by the end of the program. So I propose what you need to propose to get the task done, but make sure you can get there in the end.
Thank you. I like that answer. Thank you. Cole, next
Okay.
one.
Yep, take the last one here. Can you explain the objective from section 2.1 of the RFP, which is, quote, to provide methodology to transition that knowledge to U.S. supply base? Do you have an idea how this transition may take place within or external to INSITE scope? Is another project plan to transition the outcome?
So we want you to work with some kind of a supplier to transition in an instance, demonstrate how you can transition it there. And then once we can demonstrate the value and show it, the government team is there to help support getting this approval through our qualification requirements so that we can use it more broadly. Is that good?
Cole, I do think there was one more. I don't think.
Yeah, we got two more that popped in here. To what degree
Bonus
to what degree should the in-situ sensing technologies be generalizable to other similar DED systems? In other words, are you more interested in an in-situ framework that can be implemented and demonstrated across a range of DED machines? Are you discouraging or encouraging machine OEM or prime specific sensing frameworks?
So the more broadly applicable the system can be at the end, the more favorably it will be looked on. We are not going to look very favorably on any machine OEM prime specific lockdown parameters for this. This is the output of this is intended to be shared across the America Makes community so that we can have the biggest impact to the DOW we can.
Yeah, and I just want to comment that we did put language in your task 1 that basically says no black box one-time solutions, right? We're not looking for a one-time solution. So I echo that, Jay. Last question, Cole.
Do we need to already have the materials proposed qualified to certain DoD standards?
So I think the answer there is it's not a requirement. However, if the material proposed is not or not soon to be qualified, it's going to be very difficult to show a implementable transition pathway.
Okay. I think that concludes our time. So Jay, thanks very much. Thank you all for your good questions and for staying 5 minutes over to our government team. Again, we'll be re-meeting. There's an additional industry day if more questions come up, but please, please, please submit them formally to the project called America Makes so we can get these answered and put on the website. Thank you again to our resource sponsors and those that have joined from the government SMEs from this area of focus. We're really excited about this program. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, it is an unprecedented amount. It's for a single award. And again, with the key focus on DED or large format additive manufacturing. So with that, we'll call this meeting to a close and look forward to your submissions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Zane, I'm going to go ahead and end.